We're in Darling Harbour in the International Convention Centre, and IBM has turned on a really big show. So we're going to talk about some of the amazing things that are coming up through the day, but I thought I would just grab a couple of quick seconds with you here on camera to show you what's behind me. Have a look. I'm in Sydney at ThinkAU 2018, and I have the pleasure of being joined by Rupert Colchester. How are you, Rupert?
I'm very well, thank you. Yeah, it's been a fantastic day.
Thanks for joining me on camera. So, very briefly, could you maybe just quickly introduce yourself and where you fit into IBM?
Yeah, so I'm the lead for IBM in Australia and New Zealand on blockchain, all things blockchain, both the technology side of things and the services.
Fantastic. I have to ask you this as a bit of a laugh. When you add blockchain to something like a company name, usually the value doubles. Does that happen when you put it in your CV with your salary?
Oh, if only.
Okay, so maybe could you just give us a quick summary on kind of what you're working on around blockchain, and then we'll dive into what blockchain actually is and where the key strengths and benefits are.
Yeah, sure. So we're all about blockchain for businesses, helping businesses basically understand how they navigate their early stages with the technology. So what solutions can they build? What applications can they build that help themselves and the networks in which they do business to improve?
And what does that journey look like? So imagine if I'm in a boardroom, you've come to visit me, I'm a bank or an airline, how does that conversation start? How do you show the value proposition of what blockchain is and distributed ledgers and so forth, both for my organization internally and then also with my business partners and supply chain partners?
Yeah, so I mean, for sure, a couple of years ago it was all about education. I've seen over the course of today that everybody understands what it is. We're not getting any questions about what is blockchain.
Right, okay.
I feel like we've moved on. We're now in a debate about how you get from POC to pilot to production.
Right.
And to your earlier joke, there is still some resume enhancing going on, and we've been talking about that a little today. I feel in the boardroom the debate is how do I get business value out of it? So yes, it's a technology, but how do I actually install it? What does this thing look like?
How do I even get my hands on it, right? Because it's like you can't sort of necessarily, there's a lot of open source and there's a lot of packaged software, but how do you get to the point where someone like IBM comes in and says, well, we've got a product and we've got a platform and this is what it does, to that we've got a minimum viable product and a working thing.
Exactly right, yeah. And there's a very peculiar and difficult challenge going on around, I want to put my hands on something, get my hands around it, and yet at the same time I want to share it with the rest of the network in which I do business.
Now we've got a demo behind us that's run the sort of the micro supply chain of growing and selling and packaging and then buying coffee, and it walked through the various stages. Maybe just walk us through kind of an activation. So if an organization's come to IBM and said we want the blockchain, what are the natural steps that you take them through for that journey?
So it often does begin with a prototyping phase, I guess, which is always accompanied by a sensible vision. That vision can be 1 year out, can be 2 years out, sometimes it's 10 years out and really interesting stuff. In the case of coffee, it's all about provenance. It varies. Sometimes it's provenance, sometimes it's traceability, which is a slight tweak on provenance. Sometimes it's auditability and trying to, go against counterfeiting and fraud. So we center that prototype around the business problem. We then iterate as quickly as possible to build something that those businesses can prove with their network.
Is it fair to say that one of the key aspects and one of the key strengths of what blockchain does, and certainly what you're rolling out, is that immutability, the fact that it's almost impossible to cheat the system, it's almost impossible to hack the data, so this whole data breach problem doesn't necessarily go away, but it changes in a sense.
Yeah, it gives a totally different way to control it, I guess.
Right.
And it causes a real step up. We've talked a lot over the course of today about the ability that blockchain provides businesses to step well ahead, to leapfrog existing technologies. The integration with existing processes is important, but it's not hard. And what's different about cryptocurrencies and stuff, and the work we're doing, is the idea of permission. So companies know who they do business with in the existing world pretty much. When it's business to business, we're mimicking that with our approach through the Hyperledger community. This is permission blockchain, where you know who you're exchanging data with.
Yeah, and I guess we've had electronic data interchange (EDI) around for a while with similar rule sets, but with just, I guess, without the same protection of the data and the same crypto magic that stops people from breaking that. Is it a natural extension from EDI, or is it a very, very different thing still? I mean, does it expand on EDI?
Well, first of all, I think they coexist, and every big retailer I talk to at the moment, absolutely, they need to coexist. I think it is an extension. You can track back, which you can't do so easily with EDI.
Right.
It's all very well knowing where your coffee bean came from, but can you see every step back in the way?
Good point.
If you wanted to recall a set of coffee that had come out, from somewhere dodgy or something had happened, you might well want to see every step of the way, and that would include the truck it's been on, the port it's been through. Who knows?
Right.
Yeah.
And I guess that's the challenge with EDI in the past, is that someone could actually fake the records, right? Whereas in this case, if it's properly deployed, you really can't fake the records.
Yeah, and if you can't fake the records and it's immutable, like you said, you have something really powerful.
That's a game changer. Before we wrap up, if you're going to gaze into a crystal ball and look at where we are in the next sort of 3 to 5 years, where are we with blockchain? Where are you going with your team at IBM with blockchain, and what are the next big evolutionary steps that you see over the horizon?
So I think this year, at the moment, my team's focused on how you get to production.
Yep.
So taking these pilots and starting to scale them out, and I think that's going to become a big theme for the next probably 5, even 10 years.
Okay.
How do you drive that network effect?
Right.
And it varies from blockchain implementation to blockchain implementation, whether it's about the safety of food, or tracking containers around the world, or the growth of a banking solution effectively. The network effect is always the fundamental thing that's going to drive the network growth.
Have we really started to talk about the compute capability of blockchain networks? Because a lot of people forget that the stuff that blockchains are being distributed on are effectively supercomputer-style architectures. Has that become a conversation that we're talking about yet?
At the moment, I'd say the technology is doing everything we need it to do to progress the industry.
Right.
So it hasn't become it hasn't held it back in any way.
Okay.
I think there's a lot of interesting discussion to be had around the strength of those computers, including quantum. What happens when quantum crypto is introduced into the world of blockchain, which won't be far from now.